All right, everyone, welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new, my name is James Angley, and today we're going to be talking about something that's pretty important to me, something called the Olympics of four-wheel drive. This is my angle. My name's James Angley, and we're going to get into not quite a deep dive, not a short, but something in the middle. We'll just call it like a medium dive. This is the Camel Trophy. Those of you who don't know, strap in. I'm going to teach you about something that, man, I'm too interested in it. All right, let's get into it. RJ Reynolds, the company that owns the cigarette brand Camel, wants to do an advertising campaign. Now, for those of you who are younger than me, I'm a millennial. So people like me and the Gen Xers before me, they know cigarette brands did all sorts of advertising. Honestly, they did the best advertising. Anybody who's ever looked at a Marlboro F1 car that Ayrton Senna drove, and I know I butchered that name, knows that they had cool stuff. We're talking about the Camel Trophy. We're talking about F1 liveries that were out of control. We're talking about the Winston Cup. We're talking about all sorts of cigarette advertisements that I can't even go down the rabbit hole to get into. Cigarette companies did it right. And I know that that's taboo because, you know, they kill people. But, man, I wish I could bring some of that back. I know that we don't have a lot of print. We don't have a lot of magazines. There's not a lot of stuff like that. But I'm sure there's some people back there who remember flipping through a magazine and seeing a Land Rover in that yellow camel sand glow color, just covered in mud, and some burly, manly looking man sitting there smoking a cigarette and just thinking like, that. I don't know what it is, but I want that. That is the life. And they could bring that back. And we're going to get into that. So let's go back to 1980. RJ Reynolds was like, let's do some advertising. Let's do some sort of campaign, but let's make it crazy. So they decided to go down to Brazil with some amateur off-road guys, rent a U50, and just go pummeling it through Brazil's rainforest, basically. Beat the hell out of these things. And I know you're going to stop me right there. What does this have to do with Land Rover? Nothing at first. A U50, in case you were wondering, is a Brazilian Jeep. Basically, it was licensed to a Brazilian company to make a Jeep. They rented these things. Imagine your local enterprise getting back your Jeep Wrangler that's just covered in mud, beat up, falling apart, and spoiler alert, they didn't even finish. They didn't even finish the path that they were planning on completing. But it was so crazy that they were like, let's do it again. So they started reaching out for other brands, trying to get a good deal. And you know who they landed on? Land Rover. Who would have thought that Land Rover, which as you look at it today, which is a completely luxury brand, would get into the market of a cigarette advertisement competition about off-roading, and they would kill it. For those of you who are young enough to not know what this is the Camel Trophy. This is the Olympics of four-wheel drive, and this is crazy. If you've ever seen a tire cover that says "One Life, Live It," that's not Jeep, that's Land Rover. If you see it on the back of a Land Rover, those people know what's up. They created this wild advertising campaign where they're just going to go through the craziest remote places in the worst, harshest environments possible, and they're going to go kill it. They're going to try and go where no vehicle has gone. And man, I can't even describe to you how much respect I have for that. I'm a little bit nervous on this video because of how much I care for it. There are people out there who this is their life, is the Camel Trophy, Land Rovers and all sorts of stuff. And there are people who have never heard of this before. And I land somewhere a little bit more towards the crazy people, but not that far. So I'm kind of afraid to let those people down, but also not show you guys the right information. So let's just kind of do a little medium dive, as I mentioned, not quite a deep dive, and get into this. 1980, as we mentioned, they took those those Brazilian Jeeps. Let's rattle off the years that they've done this. Now, this went on from 1980 to the year 2000. Took a little break in 99, but we'll get into that. So let's rattle off all the crazy places that they've been here. 1980, Brazil. 81, Sumatra. 82, Papua New Guinea. 83, Zaire. 84, Brazil. 85, Borneo. 86, Australia. 87, Madagascar. 88, Sulawesi. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. I'm sure I pronounced other ones wrong too. 89, the Amazon. 1990, Siberia. 1991, Tanzania. 1992, Guyana. 1993, Malaysia. That one's mildly important because America won. No big deal. 1994, Argentina. 1995, Mando Maya. 1996, Kalimantan. 97, Mongolia. 98, Tierra del Fuego. And then they took that break in 99, and they tried to do a Hail Mary in 2000 and bring it all back in Tonga. It didn't work, obviously. They've tried to revive this again later on with the G4 competition, the Trek Edition Land Rovers, which is the new Defenders that they've had, but none of it really worked out. It's kind of wild, actually, when you think about it. It went from this, again, Olympics four-wheel drive, mud, winching, the worst conditions you could possibly think of, freezing cold in the Siberian Arctic tundra, to deserts, to mud, really testing people. When you look back, there's an awesome, I believe it's Car and Driver article where they talk about when America won. There was 4 Americans, 4 amateur off-roaders that won this competition. When you look back on that and you read that article from the person who actually was on that trip, and you just, the hell that they went through, it's insane when you think about it. They had one article of clothing. They were doing these competitions where they'd go off-roading all day long. They'd get, 2 miles down the road after 14 hours of just digging everyone out. And then they'd go and do some stupid competition where they go hiking on a backpacking trek, and it was part of the competition. And they were so worn down, so beat, that they were like, okay, so wait, we're coming back to base camp? Okay, we're going to empty our Pelican cases that we're supposed to take with us, dump all our junk. Hopefully the locals don't steal it, and we're going to come back down. They had to battle against spiders, snakes, bugs, leeches, all sorts of crazy parasites that they never had to deal with. You're talking about sleeping upright in a car with a bungee cord strapped to your head so you can get some rest so your head doesn't just bob down. That's the best rest you ever got. They're just going in and out of delirium just trying to get through this. It's wild to think that there's just average people out there wanting to do this, me included. Back when this was in its heyday, you were looking at 1 million people applying to get in here, and so few actually made it. And it's one of those type 2 fun situations where you hate every second of it, but you look back and you're like, this is the best time of my life. And I genuinely believe that that's how they went through this. Think of it like a 4x4 version of Survivor. That's just crazy. Now let's talk about the real stars of the show. Let's talk about the vehicles. And again, I got my notes here, so I'm just trying to keep up. 1980, we had the Jeep U50. We talked about that, the Brazilian Jeep. But 81 is when they brought in the Land Rover crew. Range Rover Classics. It's wild to think that this generation looks at a Range Rover like this crazy Mercedes-type luxury vehicle that is super expensive and super luxury. They understood recently. They picked up on it. We don't need to make the most reliable vehicle, not that they ever really did. We don't need to make the most reliable vehicle. We don't need to make it the most off-road capable vehicle. We just need to make something ultra luxury, ultra nice, and charge an ultra premium price. And they went down that, and it's really winning them. But when you go back in the day, the Range Rover Classic was kind of like a Swiss Army knife. You could take this thing to the nicest restaurant in town. You could take it to an English countryside, and you could take this thing hunting. And it didn't matter where it was. It fit in. It did everything. It was like the perfect example of that phrase, a jack of all trades, but a master of none. But a lot of people kind of forget the second half of that. It's a jack of all trades, a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. It was good at a little bit of everything, and that's what made it cool. And man, was it cool. Ask Dennis Reynolds, he'll tell you. So, Range Rover Classics in 81. 83, we brought in the Series 3 109, which a lot of people don't know what that means. The precursor to the Defender of what we know today, or at least all the way up until 2016 before they changed it. 84, Defender 110. 80, which is a 4-door. 85, Defender 90, 2-door, as I like to call it, a 3-door. 1990, they brought in that Disco, the Discovery 3-door. I would love to have one of these in my driveway because we didn't get it here in America. We didn't get a 3-door Discovery. Pretty awesome. 96, they brought in what we now know as a Discovery. This is the Disco 1. This is a 5-door, aka a station wagon, but in the States, it was an SUV. We had an adventure vehicle. It was a 5-door, aka a 4-door with a, not a regular tailgate. It was a swing away door. And in the back there, they had these cool jump seats. That was kind of cool. That was back in 96. 98, this is when we got into like the Freelander world. Freelander was a budget Land Rover for people who wanted to get into that world but didn't have the money. And to be honest, they just put the least reliable drivetrain in this thing, and it failed. Overseas, this actually did pretty good. They had a nice diesel that wasn't half bad, and it's kind of got a cult following. It did have this cool convertible top on some of them, which was cool. But in 98, this is when they switched from like true off-roading and getting into the mud and the muck and winching and doing crazy stuff to adventure sports. We're talking kayaking, skiing, mountain biking, things like that. Not that I scoff at that stuff. It's just, to me, I think the thing that made Camel Trophy cool was the off-roading, not the other stuff. Little like adventure sports with a side of 4x4. Again, 99, they took a break. 99 is when they just kind of gave up on it. 2000, they were like, let's try and bring it back. Somebody was like, let's really bring back the spirit of it. They brought back the Defender in 2000, but ultimately it failed. One of the cool things about this competition was the trophies that you would get. They had these awesome trophies, and there's an article on The Drive by Andrew Collins, who's one of my favorite automotive journalists. He brings in these wild images that he got from the caretakers of these trophies. The detail on them is insane. And I'll drop a link below of that article. It's just so cool. And then there was not only a trophy about who won, who came in second, who came in third, but there was the Spirit Award, which is just the people who just pushed through and persevered the most and just did their best. That's an awesome one too. And that's really the one you want to win. You don't really care about winning the competition as much as you care about having the Spirit Award, because it's like, hey, we didn't win. We didn't do the best. Our car got destroyed, but we were okay. We kept going through. We persevered. We were killing it. That's the one that I think is the coolest thing. Now, let's get into the stuff that I think is really cool. I think it can come back. I think with the advent of Zins, aka like a smokeless tobacco product, a nicotine pouch, I think Camel should make their own version of a Zin. Call it a Camel Hump. I know that's a terrible name, but rush hour people, come on, you know what I'm talking about. I just think it would be so cool to see Camel come back and start this competition back up again. I don't really picture it with Land Rover right now. They have the Defender. It's really cool. I really actually love the new Defender, and I think it's a great off-road vehicle. I think it doesn't get the recognition it should. But let's talk about Ineos. Ineos is there because Land Rover forgot their regular customer base. They went to the luxury upscale level. They forgot the true off-roader, the true rough, tough and tumble, like just crazy off-road world. Ineos, 2 live axles, built for off-roading. Jim Ratcliffe was a huge Defender guy, huge adventurer. I think this is a perfect opportunity to help Ineos. And I can't imagine, with the way that the cigarette world is going, again, they sort of kill people. I can't imagine that they're doing as good as they were doing back in the 90s. So imagine like a Camel version of a Zin bringing this crazy advertising campaign. We're talking about millions of dollars going into this and putting it on the side of an Ineos. I don't know if you would do the same Sanglo yellow. I don't even know if there's a legal repercussion if they did something like that. What if they did like the Camel Crush colors, like they were black with that like crazy like bluish green color? That'd be kind of cool, actually. You put something together like that. Maybe we'll call them Camel Crushers. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. You guys put in the comments below if you think I'm crazy or if you think that I'm on to something here. Ineos, I think, would be awesome. I know we talk about reliability. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. One of the last reliable automotive brands, Toyota. Man, how cool would it be if Toyota got in on this? And I don't want to hear about, oh, the new Toyotas are garbage. Their turbo V6s are all being replaced, blah, blah, blah. If you really look into it, it's not as bad as you think. Toyota is still one of the most reliable brands. And you're crazy if you don't think that. I don't want to get into that. Toyota would be a cool one. I don't know if any of you are fans of Forrest Galante's show. He's like an outdoorsman, adventurer, biologist, animal just advocate, we'll call it. He does a podcast with his friends. They'll call him and they're all the listeners are the brosners. He's the broologist, and they really love animals, and they talk about animals on there. It'd be kind of cool to do something like that. I don't want to get into we're going to off-roading, but we're also going to do like a bike ride. I want to get into, we're going to do off-roading because of a purpose, some other reason. I think today's world needs something that's not just like a colonizer view of let's just, be the first vehicle that this tribe has seen. I want to clear a path for some tribe that has trouble getting to a local hospital or something like that. I want to do something helpful. I want to, okay, we got 20 of these vehicles out here to help dig wells for the Congo, and we're going to help clear a path so we can get there. The contestants are going to help with that whole process. I want to do a partnership with Forrest Galante and the Wild Times podcast. Let's get to some remote area where there's some animals that they want to study, whether it be an animal that they think is extinct or some animal that needs help. I think this, maybe Disney Channel wants to get involved. Not Disney. Wow, did I say that? Discovery Channel wants to get involved in it and do a special on it. We're going to promote the Camel brand. I know that sounds weird, but these aren't cigarettes. There's a lot of studies that show nicotine is actually good for you in moderation. And we got Ineos or Toyota, or hell, if Land Rover wants to get back on board, I'm all for that. We're promoting these two brands. And then we got Discovery, who's backing it and just promoting it out to the world. I think there's a real chance for this, and I think it'd be really cool. Again, you might think I'm crazy, but this to me sounds pretty awesome. If you get a chance, you guys need to get that book, the Land Rover, the Camel Trophy Definitive History book. It breaks down everything. There's so much more information in there than I could even talk about in this video without making you all fall asleep. So please get in there. I want you to get in the comments. Let me know if you think any of this is cool. Let me know if you think I'm crazy. Let me know if you think there's a chance to bring some sort of off-road competition back. Look how good the Dakar's doing. I think there's an opportunity here. Get in the comments, chat about it. Don't forget, like, subscribe, hit the bell, get the notifications. This is my angle, and I am James Angley. Thank you.